Warning, this podcast contains explicit sexual language and should only be listened to at work if you're looking for an excuse to connect with your HR representative. Additionally, all mentions of the word women include cis and trans women. For my friends who are genderqueer, gender fluid, figuring it out, anything in between, and feel like this conversation is also important for you, you are welcome here.
Will you open up with me? These pages, they can feed your innermost desires. Do you feel inspired? Are you getting what you need? Are you coming curiously? A secret safe with me. And here you can simply be yourself. Jace reads romance. Come on in, come on in, come on.
Hi, y'all. This is Jace, she, they, and you found Jace Reads Romance, a community dedicated to empowering women about sex and sexuality through the reading of romance novels. It is a new month, also a new year, but I'm gonna hide that. I'm gonna forget about that because it's not 2025 at all. It's not. Just can't be. We're just gonna pretend it's the month after December, but still somehow 2024. That's the world I'm living in right now.
The magical 13th month.
I think that we should it's a leap year. It's like the Jewish calendar where every 7 years you get an extra month, not just a day. You get a whole leap month. We're doing that. Thank you. I had quite an exciting month, and I'm going to talk about it because there was a definite shift at a certain point in the month, and I want to be very transparent about it. So we're going to go with stats and then into the books, and I'm going to do my motherfucking best to not take forever. Is that's the right thing? So it's an amuse-bouche, amuse-bouche of these stories and not a full review. You can find that on other social media platforms. Okay, so in the month of December, I read 28 books. Full disclosure, there were quite a few novellas. So do not judge me and do not judge this number. If you did not read 28 books, fuck off. It doesn't fucking matter. Like, read whatever you want. If you read one book, if you read one page, congratulations. December is a potentially really shitty time of year. And so just honor whatever you got through. I happened to get through this by reading. And it was 28 books. The other thing that I usually share in this is the diversity goals. So in 2024, my diversity goals were to have, God damn it, 33% of the books read be by authors of color and 15% be queer stories. And I hit both of those goals. I did.
Yay!
I read 10 of my books were by authors of color, so it was 35.71%. And 6 of my books were queer stories, so 21.43%. And if you've
awesome.
Thank you. If you've already listened to the 2025 goals episode, you know that I am upping those in this coming year. I'm really excited about it. This was one of the, also want to share, this was one of the worst physical book months not the worst. I had one that was way worse than this, but wasn't a great month for physical books. I only read 5, and I'll share why at the end of this. And, but it just kind of was what it was.
Can I just say something really quick before you start in on the books? We're recording today on my grandma's birthday. She is no longer with us. This is her 3rd birthday in heaven or wherever the afterlife is. But she was the one that introduced me to romance novels. And it was like the really cheesy Harlequin romance, like the very stereotypical, but still it was an introduction to romance novels.
I want to do an episode on like the history of romance and how like we make fun of Harlequin, but how important they were in like the expansion of it.
So important. But like she would read them all the time. It's how I learned about that whole genre. So I feel like it's a really good homage to her today that we're doing the December wrap up for romance novels. So I love you, Grandma. Happy birthday.
Grandma. Happy birthday. My grandparents died so long ago. So much longer ago than 3 years. All right, just the general warning that there won't be a ton of spoilers, but I will spoil lots of things. So if you're looking for more spoil-free, I'm probably not the person for this. I'm trying to do more like tropes and vibes than full plot, but we'll see. We're just gonna see. We're gonna see how this goes together.
I feel like that's every episode. Every episode with you, dear, is a journey.
It's funny. In my other life, in my previous life, I was very regimented. Like, if you can believe it, like if there was an outline for a conversation, a lecture, a training that I had to leave, like I followed it to the motherfucking letter. And my main coworker was the kind of person who could just like zip all over and like, I'll get this section, turn the page in that section. And it drove me motherfucking nuts because like, that's just not how my brain works with some things. And I don't know why, but when I got into like this romance world, I was like, fuck order. There will be none of that. And so I'm going to shout out Alicia because I think Alicia gave me the confidence to know that like, if I got off track, I could, I have the skill and I have the ability to absolutely get back to where I need to be and like get done when I need to get done. So thanks, Alicia. Shout out to you. Let's actually get started. First book was American Prince by Sierra Simone, and I'm not going to talk about it much because we did 2 podcast episodes on the New Camelot trilogy by Sierra Simone, but it is an MMF novel. It is based on the Arthur story. It is so tragic and sad and beautiful and kinky as fuck.
Yes.
And I think that's all I really need to say now because I have, 2.5 hours on this series.
It's true.
In previous weeks.
Yes.
So yeah, you don't need to talk to me about you don't need me to talk about it right here. Second book, because I needed something light, was Her Night at the Museum by Bryn Donovan. This is Bryn Donovan's first novel, and it is MF contemporary. And this was a rom-com. This was a very sweet contemporary rom-com where our MMC and I am there are going to be like no names in this. Like all of my notes are so screwy right now, but just like we're going to roll. I'm updating my note taking how I do that. And so these will have better notes in the future, but for this part of 2024, it's not happening. But it's Emily and Griffin. Oh my God, I remembered it by myself.
Good job.
Griffin. Emily is an art restorer at the Art Institute in Chicago, which is another reason why I really enjoy this book, because as someone who lives in Chicago, I'm like, yeah, good job. Yeah. And Griffin is a statue. He's been cursed to be a statue, and Emily frees him from this curse. And then they have to deal with the real consequences of a statue going missing and everybody thinking Emily stole it. And also Griffin being from hundreds of years ago and not knowing what the hell's going on. And it was really sweet. It was spicier than I was expecting for how rom-com-y it felt. It wasn't super spicy, but it was spicier than I expected. And I loved that there was a moment that Emily had where she went, oh my God, vaccines. You don't have any. Also, what are you potentially carrying that we don't have? It's so real. And she takes him to like a free clinic that like doesn't ask for IDs to like get tested, get vaccinated, like get all of this stuff done. And I just appreciated that moment really hard. There is a little bit of miscommunication, but I think it's understandable miscommunication because you're literally hundreds of years separated and like you don't understand some of the words and the cultural things that are happening. So I didn't even feel that bad about it.
Nice.
All right. Darn it all. DARN Knit all.
Knit.
Knit. That's How else am I supposed to say that? Like in an oral medium, like that's the way that, Knit It All by Evie Mitchell is the third book in the All Access series. I listened to this via audiobook, and this is a friends to lovers forced proximity fake dating situation of Mai and Theo. These are characters we've met in the earlier All Access series. Mai has very serious anxiety and panic attacks. That is her invisible disability. And Theo is missing the lower part of his right leg. And has...
I thought you were going to say like the lower part of his body. And I'm like, whoa.
No. Also, like, that's not a reveal in this book. We've met Theo before. Right. We know his brother Link was the previous book. So we know about his accident. Okay. We know how it happened. It happened at the end of high school. So he's been living with a prosthetic for many, many years. But they become like best friends over years, which is very important to know because Mai is demisexual as well.
Oh, okay.
And so Mai is demisexual and Theo is bisexual, potentially pan, but they only mention men and women. They don't mention anyone on the non-binary scale, if I recall. So, but like their relationship, we see them start to text years before the events of this book, which is very important because it takes years and comfort and like knowing someone intimately for Mai to develop sexual feelings for them. Right. So that journey is very important. Theo and Mai become best friends and they are trying to like push each other out of their comfort zones. And Mai does this by helping Theo date. And Theo does this by signing Mai up for a fashion reality show. Mai designs clothes.
Oh, okay.
And she gets picked, but they didn't realize, like Theo didn't realize he signed her up for a couples challenge year. And so she's supposed to be part of a couple. And so she and Theo pose as a couple to go on the show together, which is even funnier because Theo has like negative skills when it comes to sewing and fashion and all of that. So he basically just like is her assistant and like conspirator. And it's really sweet and it's really fun. And the same thing as in her previous All Access books, Evie Mitchell does a great job of not shying away from the less romantic aspects of living with invisible or visible disabilities and diseases. So we see Mai have a panic attack. We see her use self-soothing techniques. We see Theo in pain because he's been on his feet for too long. We see his need for an accessible shower because he's not going to wear his prosthetic in the shower and he has to use crutches and handles and things. Like, she doesn't shy away from that, and I appreciate it. Number 4, A Tropical Rebel Gets the Duke by Adriana Herrera. This is an arc. I read this as an arc. It is coming out in February of 2025. It is, I think, February 4th. 4th. It is the third book in the La Leona's trilogy, and it was my goddamn motherfucking favorite. It's so good. It's Loathe to Love Aurora, Dr. Aurora and Apollo, who we have known from book 1. Aurora is one of the trio of female friends, the Leonas, and Apollo is Evan from the first book's brother that he plots with to basically like not overthrow his father, but his father's a duke and married Apollo's mom for her fortune and then left her when she was pregnant with him and didn't tell anyone that he had married this black woman in the Americas and used that money to then like marry Evan's mom. It's like, so he's such a horrible person. And then Apollo shows up and like is like, hi, I'm your son. I'm actually inheriting everything. Here's your scandal, and I'm gonna send you off to the country to live in squalor ish. But Apollo but at the beginning of this book, the Duke has died. And so Apollo is now Duke. And so he not only he's dealing with like what happens after revenge and what happens now that he is a black man living as one of the highest, in one of the highest roles of aristocracy in the UK, where like they don't like black people.
Yeah.
Let's be real honest about that. Yeah. And Aurora is a black woman who has her own sordid history, and she's a doctor. She is cut off from her family's money at the beginning of this story. And how does she navigate this world as like a physician, as a woman, with all the restrictions that they have, with all the lack of care that women get and the lack of rights that women get. And also these two people who are so attracted to each other, but also feel like they are absolutely wrong for each other. Not that the other person is wrong for them, but that they are wrong for
the other person.
They are wrong for the other. You know, Aurora's like, he needs a duchess. I'm not a duchess. Like, what? I'm a woman. I'm a doctor. I have this scandalous past. I'm not part of the British aristocracy. And Apollo is like, I can't marry her. She needs like freedom. And like, he's amazing. It's really great, but they are so drawn toward one another. And I will ruin how this story starts. I will. I'm ruining chapter 1. They've been fighting for 2 motherfucking books. 2 books. And the backstory at the beginning of this is that Aurora has just been cut off from her family, and now the Apollo is Duke. And she's like, I want to control something in my life. I'm going to go fuck Apollo. And so like first chapter is her showing up at his apartment being like, no strings attached sex. Thank you. One and done. And then obviously it was not one and done.
Not one and done.
It was such a great start. It was such an unexpected start and such an emotional start because of their history. And it like, oh, so great. It was so great. And
I love that she chose like, this is the thing I can control, and I'm going to control it because my life is so uncontrollable right now.
Yeah. She's like, I want to say fuck you to the world and like the expectations put upon me. And so, you know what? I'm going to go have no strings attached sex with a dude that like, obviously I would never want for real. It's great.
Yeah. Look how that turned out.
Too bad. Number 5 is Tale of the Heart Queen by Nisha J. Tooley, and this was the final book in the Artifacts of Oronos series. It was so great. You know, there are some books that finish, it's a tetralogy, so 4 books, and there are some final books where you feel like, is that really how you're ending it? And I didn't feel like that. One of the things about books 3 and 4, so Fate of the Sun King and Tale of the Heart Queen, is there is this end goal. It is Lore and Nadir together. It is Lore as the Heart Queen rebuilding the Kingdom of Heart. That is their goal. And it feels like, shouldn't it be linear? And yet time and time again, these side quests are thrown in their face of, you have to get this, you have to achieve that, this person's in your way, you've been kidnapped, you might be dead. And at times I feel like some of those could be frustrating. And yet for me, it felt like, yes, this is what you need to do. These are the people you need to talk to. You do need to overcome this obstacle so that you can, when you get to Heart, have the infrastructure and the peace, because you've taken care of everything else, to do what you need to do. And it felt like a very well-earned final book. I felt very satisfied.
So that's how you should always be left feeling.
Yeah, felt very satisfied with it. So book number 6 is Her Very Sexy Christmas, which I got as an ARC, but did come out in December as well. This is by Theodora Taylor, and you might recognize that name because Therese M. Clark, who I interviewed back in November, recommended Theodora Taylor. And this is like just how kismet everything is. So I'd never heard of Theodora Taylor as an author. My bad. Probably like maybe a week or 2 after that interview, I saw an ARC sign up for her holiday novella, Her Very Sexy Christmas, signed up for it on a whim, like, hey, I've heard of this author, I want to check her out, got the ARC, read Her Very Sexy Christmas, and went, yeah. It was great. It's a holiday novella that has nothing to do with Christmas, except for the fact that it takes place at Christmas.
Takes place during Christmas, yeah.
Yes, I am absolutely not going to remember all 4 of their names. Sorry. Because there are 4 of them. There's an FMC. It's a lot of names. Polly's are fun. FMC has just broken up with her cheating boyfriend, who she was living with, who is a doctor at the hospital she's the nurse of, who then files a misconduct thing for her because he was like, no, we don't have to tell HR we're dating. It'll be fine. Lies. Asshole. So gets her suspended from her job, kicks her out of the apartment. So she is homeless and jobless right around Christmas. Her sister, who lives in Vancouver, is like, come stay with me. You could even be a traveling nurse at the hospital that I work at. No worries. So she's driving through the mountains of Canada. There's a snowstorm. She hits a snowbank. She crashes. She's almost dying of hypothermia.
Oh my God.
And that is where her little story ends, because she is found by Caleb? Yeah, I don't know. We'll call him Young Bear. She is found by a mall of bears. 3 bear men. She's found by one of the bears, but they're part of a mall.
Okay.
3 bear. Berry sexy Christmas.
Makes more sense.
Bear shifter.
Okay.
They have malls, which are like groups of 3 who usually have one mate. And she does mention in this story that there can be queer malls. So like, love it, queer representation, even though this isn't a queer story.
Yes.
And so this mall is an older bear, the leader bear of like the whole group, not just this mall, but like all of them. And then the young bear. The young bear is like, oh, I'm walking home. It's really cold. I'll shift into my bear, and finds her and is like, she smells great. Bites her, which turns her into a bear shifter. And so older bear and leader bear come home and they're like, what the fuck smells in our cave? And they find naked FMC on a pile of clothes, bitten, changed into a bear shifter. And like, young bear comes out of his room and he's like, man, y'all, I had the craziest dream. And they're like, what do you mean dream? What did you do?
What did you
do? And then she goes into estrus, which is the bear version of heat. Yeah. And so, oh no, they have to take care of her in heat. No. And like, she's dealing with it's so great. And like, it has nothing to do with Christmas, which is the best part for me. Right. Except for the fact that it takes place at Christmas.
Right.
And a fated mate situation where like you smell her and you have to have her. It's perfect. It's perfect. And it was short and it was sweet. And like, I loved it. I also loved that this says book 1 of this mountain community series. Book 1, which implies that there will be more. I want more. I'm hoping every holiday gets one. Her very sexy Valentine's, very sexy St. Patrick's Day, very sexy Memorial Day, all of it. I want one every year.
Like, why just keep it to American holidays? Expand.
Well, they're in Canada, so like Canadian Thanksgiving.
Holiday.
I don't know.
Canadian Thanksgiving, exactly.
Book number 7 is American King. I'm also not going to talk about this one, except it made me motherfucking weep. And you can listen to me talk about it and cry. I cried during our podcast episode.
You did.
I did, about this book. So if you like to cry, if you like for your soul to be ripped apart and just like sewn back with Frankenstein stitches, it really is beautiful. Like I don't like to cry, and so I'm very salty about it, but honestly, it was such an incredible read. Like 5 fucking stars. 5 stars, no questions asked. Yeah. Next book was this an arc? No, this is not the arc. This is A Hunger Like No Other by Cressley Cole. Cressley Cole is one of the OG PNR writers that I missed, and her books are being re-released with new covers. I think it started this year and next year, because we're going to get to another one. And this is the official first book of the series. There is a novella that's a 0.5, The Warlord Wants Forever, which I read, I think, last month or in November. And then I read A Hunger Like No Other. I am not in love with this series as of this book. You definitely do or should read the novella before book 1. It sets up some stuff.
Oh, I remember you saying that.
I wasn't sure. I didn't love the novella, but but I was like, I'm not going to hold judgment because I don't know if you need to read it. I'm going to say you do need to read it. And I'll get even further into why later. But this story is set up in the novella. It is Lachlan and why do I want to say Emmeline again? Don't hold me to that. But we're going to call Emmeline maybe is a vampire Valkyrie hybrid. Her mother was a Valkyrie. Her father was a vampire.
Damn.
And the Valkyrie have raised her. Her mom basically died in childbirth, and the Valkyrie have raised her. She's very precious. Lachlan is the head of the what's called Lycae, or the shifters, the wolf shifters, and he has been imprisoned by the vampires for the last 150 years under Paris next to this like inferno. And so he is burned alive over and over and over again and has been for 150 years. So basically he has been tortured for 150 years. It's awful.
Shit.
It's really awful.
I hate that so much.
It's so bad. But also I'm like, oh, this is so 2006 PNR. Like this is why I'm also like, this is the stuff that I started with. So when people are like, oh, the gore of some dark romance, I'm like, I don't mind the gore. The gore is fine. It's the weird relationships that like always get me.
Yeah. Because this is about 2006 is about the same time that
2000.
Underworld came out. I think that's a movie.
Okay.
That's a movie. I realized your face was like, meh. No, it's a movie about a war between vampires and lichens.
Who knows?
It
sounds about that. But so Lachlan smells her from where he's been imprisoned, and he's like, that's my mate. And is like, well, I have to get out of here now, and rips off his own leg because that's the last thing he can't get out of the chains. Literally rips off his own leg to go find her. And she has no idea what's happening. And so suddenly she's walking around Paris, and this monster hulking dude who, like, let's also be reminded, is like had 150 years of motherfucking trauma at the hands of vampires.
Right.
And he just plows through the plaza, which is not what they call them in Paris, but whatever, of people, and like grabs her and takes her, like kidnaps her, and also has to reckon with the fact that his mate is half vampire. He thinks she's only a vampire. He has no idea that she's a Valkyrie. And so basically is like, I'm keeping you. You have to stay with me. It takes her back to his castle. And this is one of those where like, no is not respected. And I don't like that.
Yeah.
And even though maybe Emma says, like, I've never really felt sexual attraction before, and I do for him, which reminds me of blooding, which we learned about in the novella. When you become a vampire, you have no sexual desire. Your heart doesn't beat. You do not breathe until you meet your mate, and you become blooded, and you start to breathe again, blah, 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 blah. And so it reminds me of that, but it's not explicitly stated, and it doesn't seem to be as drastic as blooding. And she also doesn't seem to have the Valkyrie thing where you know he's your partner when you want to run into his arms. At some point, it just turned. And so I didn't love it.
Yeah. So she doesn't, so she's these two different species, but she doesn't have either of their like mating indicators, essentially.
Or it's like not explicitly stated, or they're smaller. And so I don't know, is she blooded now? Where like now she's attracted to him, but she doesn't say like, wow, he must be my mate because I'm suddenly attracted to him. And no, it's just kind of odd to me, but we meet more characters and we see more people in this story, and the couple from the novella does come into play here. And so it's just, this was the moment where I went, I don't know if I love this, but I'm not gonna stop, because I got an arc, even though it's out already, of the third book with the new cover in anticipation of it. Leaving, they were doing arcs of it. So I read the next book, or the second book. I read it, and I'll talk about it a little bit later in this list. Book number 7 is or no, 7, 9 is Dear Ash. This is a side novella in the New Camelot series by Sierra Simone. It is a letter that Embry writes to Ash. If it won't make any sense unless you've read the books, it takes place in the midst of American King, and it's just beautiful and heartbreaking. It's just a letter that he writes to Ash, Dear Ash, and I loved it. Number 10 is How My Neighbor Stole Christmas. This is by Megan Quinn. I listened to this as an audiobook. It was an audiobook with a full cast, which is why I listened rather than read. It was fine. I didn't love the female narrator. I found her performance fairly whiny. And maybe that's exactly how the the FMC story is supposed to sound, but I did not enjoy it. The MMC's name is Cole. It is a reimagining of The Grinch, which also might be my problem as I have never read The Grinch.
Have you seen the movie?
I am pretty sure I saw the Jim Carrey movie once, but like over a decade ago. I went to like a signing event for this book. So she talked about using the actual Dr. Seuss Grinch book as a lot of inspiration for this. And if I don't get it. I don't get it. So
maybe that should be on your list just to read, just so you can be like, maybe you can match some stuff up. I don't know.
I'm good. I'm good. I really don't feel the need.
That's okay.
So she was a little bit whiny to me. I wasn't 100%. I thought, I'm confused about who was the voice of Grandma, which Cindy is the grandma, which I found funny. And then Max is Cole's best friend. If you remove the fact that I'm supposed to understand it's a Grinch retelling, it was a perfectly lovely holiday book. There were some misunderstandings from when they were a kid. Oh, Story and Cole knew each other as children. Story said some really mean things about the town on the night that Cole's parents happened to also die in a car crash. And he's mad at her for saying mean things about his town and then leaving when they were very close and he really needed her, but she had no idea because they were fucking teenagers. Anyway, she comes back and her great aunt signs her up for this Christmas, like Spirit of Christmas contest. And then Cole's like, she can't be Spirit of Christmas because she hates this town and I'm mad at her. And so he signs up for the contest and then they are both in the contest together. And then they end up fake dating for the town, but then it ends up being real dating because they like each other. It's okay. All right. Near Duke Well by Alexandra Vasti is book number 11. This was I think promised as a spicy historical romance, which is why I read it, because I like historical when there's like stuff. This one was surprisingly awesome in this. I think I gave it like a solid 4, which is good. It's not her first novel, but it's her first trad published novel.
Okay.
And the second one comes out. But so we've got a duke who was a new duke who was actually the son of the third son of the duke. He was living in America in New Orleans and his father abandoned him and his family. So he was not raised to be a duke. But, you know, Napoleon and wars and everything caused all the other men in his family to die and he became the duke. And he's like, the fuck? I know, the fuck.
I was not prepared for this responsibility.
And discovers that his dad, after abandoning him, his mother, and what he discovers was a different half brother. He thought it was just his best friend, but actually is a half brother of his. He has 2 more half siblings in England and he's trying to get custody of them, but he can't because his father never acknowledged them as his children, and so he has no legal rights to his half siblings. So he's trying to care for these children who have been abandoned and passed from guardian to guardian and are certainly were not raised with money as they were the byblow of his dad. And so he feels very urgently for the circumstances of this story. And then we have the FMC, whose name I cannot remember. She's a lady. And they're kind of attracted to each other, but like they've only known each other like, you know, through other people. And her dad also died when she was really young, and her older brother took her and her twin brother in and raised them, even though he was like 20 and they were 12. They're all full sibling, maybe full siblings, but they're all siblings. And so she has a real soft spot in her heart for brothers raising siblings. Her twin recently lost his wife and child in childbirth.
Oh, no.
And he took a commission and went off to war. And so she's like feeling very lonely because her best friend is gone. And when she hears about what the MMC situation, she's like, we need to make you as appealing a candidate for guardianship as possible. You need a wife. And so they get into this like scheme of her trying to find him an eligible wife, but she doesn't list herself because when she was younger out in society, one of her friends didn't know what sex was, got seduced and got pregnant and then shunned. And she was like, are you fucking kidding me? Because she's like, I didn't know what sex was. My friend didn't know what sex was. She learned like that her dad had all these mistresses before he died and all sorts of stuff. And she's like, this is ridiculous. Women should not be kept in the dark. They should not be as ignorant and because ignorance is danger. Like her friend, Ivy, I remember her friend Ivy's name. Ivy, like, I know. Like Ivy is now like a mother to this kid because she didn't know what sex was, got seduced, was shunned by her family and the asshole who seduced her. She's ruined because she didn't know enough to protect herself. So she starts her twin Will buys this library for her. And she's like, and they're both like silent partners. And it's this library, private library with a secret catalog called like the Venus catalog, which is erotic novels, educational materials, all sorts of stuff so that women have access to sex education. And I was like, preach! It was great.
I love that.
It was, yeah. And then like the two main characters obviously have like deep attraction towards one another. And they end up getting caught making out. And she's like, oh no, look, my fiance. And so they get married. And she's like, I'm going to ruin your life because someone's going to find out about my library. And he's like, I just really like you and everything about you. She like comes to him in this absolute panic and is like, I know that I said we're engaged, but I must confess this thing to you so that you know what you're getting into. I have this library and it might ruin you. And he's like, you're so amazing.
Oh, he's besotted.
He's so besotted, and it's so sweet. And I think the only thing I didn't love is they got married and their first time was in like a closet or something absolutely not a bed, because somehow that's where they ended up. I'm like, y'all, you could have gone upstairs and had sex. There's no reason why your first time had to be in a closet.
Right? Yeah.
That's my only thing. Like you didn't have to do it. It was a really well done book. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. Technically speaking, I don't even know if this counts as a romance. So it does because two people end up together. This was an audio performance produced by Queen Latifah. And that is probably the best thing about it. It's too short. It's just too short. It's an hour and 45 minutes. And within those hour and 45 minutes, I did not believe that the two people who fall for each other actually fell for each other. It just did not make sense to me. I wish it had like 30 more minutes to watch that relationship grow.
Yeah. Wait, is this the same? Is this Ne'er-Do Well?
No, this is Technically Speaking. It's by Michael Elliott. Okay. And I heard about the audio performance and I was excited about it because it's a full cast, like dramatic telling. So there are sound effects and this and that, but it just like didn't strike me as believable. So it's a hidden identity, workplace romance-ish. It just like it was way too complicated for an hour and 45 minutes. So V is working in the commissary of a tech company. She works for the catering company in the commissary. She's also studying computer science on her own. She's a single mom to an autistic kid. She's developing an app to help him when he's having some sensory overload. And the tech company has a contest where anyone in the company can submit an idea for this thing, and then if you get chosen, you get prize money, and you also have your idea worked on and potentially made into something real. And she finds this woman who's going on maternity leave's ID, and they kind of look alike-ish. So she pretends to be that person to pitch her idea, the app that she's making for her son. She kind of tweaks it for the company, and it gets chosen. So she gets this prize money, but then she has to pretend to keep being this person so that she can work with the CEO to get the app made, and the CEO is engaged, but it's not going well. And then the CEO's best friend is the CFO, and the CFO asks out V. And so they go on a date or two, and then they don't. It was too convoluted. And at the end, you're supposed to believe that V and Troy have a connection, and but they've never really, everybody talks about their oh, maybe he likes her, maybe you like him, but we never actually see them connect in a romantic way. And so at the end of it, I was like, I don't know if I believe you.
Yeah, you need to, it's all great when you tell the story, but the whole point of writing a story is to show, not tell. And if you can't see it when you read it, that's a problem.
Yeah, it was a problem. It was a problem, and it makes me really sad because I like the idea of it. It's a pretty much all black cast. Queen Latifah plays a side character. She's amazing. The performances were good. You just needed more. You just needed more.
Yeah.
Book number 13 is No Rest for the Wicked by Cressley Cole. Yep, book number 2 in the series. So it technically came out in 2006 originally, but is being re-released in February with its new cover, which are beautiful. The new covers are gorgeous. So this is book 2, and it takes a character that we've met in the novella in the first book named Katerin, who was cursed / blessed with no feelings after losing her sisters in battle. So she has no feelings. So in the first 2 books, it's ooh, she's scary, she's weird, she has no emotions. And she's a badass warrior. And then we meet Sebastian, who is the brother of Nikolai from the novella. And so you really do need to read this novella, because Nikolai and Mist, the FMC from the novella, come into play heavily in this book.
Okay.
So Katerin has, for the last, couple millennium, anytime there's a vampire, because vampires killed their sister, has been hey, anybody have a vampire problem, I'll kill you. And this is where I'm what an asshole of a town. Sebastian lives near a town. He doesn't feed on humans. He gets blood from a butcher, and the town is we're scared of him. I'm why? He's a hermit. He's living in squalor in this decrepit castle full of books. What is wrong with you? And so Katerin shows up and is I'm going to kill you. And he's please do end my life, because he didn't want to be turned by Nikolai. He actually pleaded not to be turned. So he's been living for centuries, in this body, in this situation that he didn't want. And so he's yes, kill me. And then she can't. And then they make out. And she's why do I suddenly have feelings? And he's wait, why am I blooded? So she runs away, and he finds her. And there's this side plot of, there's basically this amazing race style thing that happens every 250 years within the PNR community. The lore is what they're called. All the, paranormal creatures are called lore in this series.
I'm sorry.
And Katerin,
Amazing Race making an appearance was not what I was expecting.
I'm sure it's not. I've never watched The Amazing Race, but it's the best thing that I can compare it to.
I love it. I love it so much.
Katerin has won every single one of them. She's won. And so she's competing, and Sebastian shows up and is well, I just want to be with you. I want to show you that I'm awesome. And I guess I will compete by your side and help you win. And she's fuck off. And he's no.
No.
But it's another one of those, the dude is hardcore, you're mine. And no, and the woman's no. And it's not respected. So yeah, there we go. It's not my favorite, because I don't feel it gives me a bit of an ick factor.
Yeah. I don't like the no not being respected. I really don't.
Yeah. I don't either. But we get better. we get better next is Triple Sec by TJ Alexander. I read Chef's Kiss by TJ Alexander, which is an NBF story. It is also the slowest of motherfucking burns. And I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I can handle another one of those 2% slow burns. But I was told that this is a much spicier book. Now the bar was low, but I said, sure, why not? This is a poly romance. So the only point of view we get is Mel. Mel is a bartender in New York City. She identifies as a lesbian. She meets this woman at the bar named Blair, goes by BB, who is like ginger and flirty and curvaceous, and they like have a flirt, or so Mel thinks, because then a human walks up to BB and BB goes, "This is my wife, Cade." And Mel's like, "What the fuck?" Now it turns out that BB and Cade, who is non-binary, Cade is non-binary, are polyamorous. And so BB's like, "I kind of want to date you, Mel." And Mel's like, "Okay, I don't know what that means." And so one of the things that I really liked in this book is you get really open communication. You get a list of like communication stuff at the beginning. And as the story evolves, that list changes. So we see things get crossed out and added and like notes put in for this like list of do's and don'ts communication wise within this relationship. So BB and Mel start dating. BB's a lawyer. Cade is an artist. And Mel is absolutely not sure what to do with her metamor, Cade. And they kind of like have a weird thing. Cade's very stoic. And BB then plans this trip to Calgary or Banff or something like that for the three of them, and gets caught up in a very big case. Then she's like, "I can't go with you right now. I'll show up tomorrow." So Cade and Mel go, and then they get snowed in at the mountain. And BB in this call is like, "Oh, maybe you and Cade could?" And we're like, "Wait, what?" Also, we only hear Cade referred to as Cade, they, them, the whole beginning of the book. And I will absolutely own this. I assumed Cade was assigned female at birth. Like that's what I assumed about Cade, especially because BB calls Cade her wife, which is the only gendered thing that we see about Cade. And when Mel and Cade go to the airport, everyone says Mr., Sir. And so I'm like, wait, Cade is not assigned. So turns out that Cade was not assigned female at birth. Cade was assigned male at birth. And we have this really interesting confrontation between Mel and a poor bartender at the airport lounge who says, "Sir." And Mel's like, "No, ma'am, no." And the bartender's like, "I have to say sir or ma'am. It's like part of my training." And they're like, and Mel's like, "That's wrong. You're rude. They, them, how dare you, not inclusive, blah, blah, blah." And Cade's like, "Wow, thank you."
Right? I'm like sitting over here with like feelings for Cade. I'm like, "Oh, look
so many feelings." I'm like, Cade has just been like misgendered, like the bellhop, the check-in, the TSA, the everything. And it finally got to this poor bartender and they exploded, like Mel exploded on the poor bartender. But they get snowed in and they also hook up because it turns out Cade's had a crush on Mel. And BB apparently was like hoping this weekend that they could kind of get together. And then Mel's like, "I will date BB and I will date Cade, but we're not together." And so that happens. And then eventually the three of them form this really beautiful polycule. Yay! And we like get to see the evolution of that. It is spicier, but we also get this weird like fade to black shit too, where we get like one scene between each grouping. So Mel and BB have their first scene together. Mel and Cade have their first scene together. And then the first time I don't even know if it's the first time, but when we have a scene with the three of them together. But then we get these weird fade to black moments of like, "I went upstairs and then several orgasms later, I fell asleep." And I'm like, why do we need to mention it? Why is it fade to black? Like, it just weirds me out. So please don't knock over my own mic. So while yes, it was spicier, I would not call it, I can't even say it was spicy. There were 3 scenes. You know, there's a threesome, but I don't know, like that fade to black kind of side stuff still weirds me out.
Yeah.
I then read Fairest by Marissa Mayer. This is the novella in the Lunar Chronicles. I know, it's been so long since I've read the Lunar Chronicles.
Wow.
Finally got back to it. Finally was like, I should finish this motherfucking series. So I read Fairest, which is a novella that Marissa Mayer suggests you read in this order, even though I don't believe it's the publishing order.
Yeah,
she recommends you read it in this order. It's not publishing order, but on her website, this is how she suggests you read it. I did not need this at all. This is Levana's story, and when you get a villain origin story, you should feel some pathos for your villain.
I haven't read it yet, so do you not? I've read the whole lunar series, but you don't. Do you not in this? Except for this. This is the only thing I haven't read.
So she's 16 in this story. So number one, she's a motherfucking child. She has an older sister who is like bitchy and rude and queen. And 16-year-old Levana is in love with a guard, and his wife dies in childbirth, and she's like, you love me, and manipulates his emotions. Number one, to have sex with him. She's 16. He's a grown-ass adult. And then basically forces him through these emotional manipulations to marry her.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's not great. And uses glamour always.
Yeah, I mean, that's... You get
she was hurt.
Yeah.
You get that. But like, we hear that she was... So basically what happened is when she was a child, her sister like burned her. We discover this. But we just watch her like emotionally manipulate and then justify. And at the end of it, I'm like, I don't feel any sympathy for you. I don't understand at all. You are completely unrelatable. You're horrible. Why did I read this story? It adds nothing to me, except for there is the reveal of what she truly looks like at the end of this, which I don't know if it's ever revealed in the Lunar Chronicles. In the rest of them, I have winter behind me, but like, I don't know if I needed to know that either.
Yeah, unless that was the attempt to try and like create the pathos for her. But
no.
But you can't do one thing to try and do that and then have your character be a complete and utter witch the rest of the time.
She's really awful, like real awful, and I have no sympathy, and I don't know why I read it. So you don't have to. Number 16.
Thank you.
Yeah, you don't have to. I'm going to read Winter. It's behind me. It's a library book. But thank God this was a library book too. Because like, no, I would not want to read. Don't want to own it at all. But number 16 is Can't Help Faking in Love. This is another arc. This is by Swati Hedge. This is her sophomore novella. I did not read Match Me If You Can. I have soft DNF'd Match Me If You Can. I started it, and it feels very much like Emma, but it wasn't mentioned as Emma. And I'm like, I don't want to read a book like Emma.
So fun story. I took an 1800s literature course in college, and Emma was one of the books we read. I spark noted that shit because I hate Emma. It's my least favorite story by Jane Austen.
So awkward. Yeah, it like gives me very hard Emma vibes. At no point in the description does it say Emma. I'm like, if you're gonna do an Emma retelling, like I need you to say something. And if you're not doing an Emma retelling right now, you're very close to it. So I have soft DNF'd that book, but I love a fake dating situation.
Yeah.
And this is Harsha and Veer. Harsha comes from this incredibly wealthy family in business. Her parents are in business, just general business is what we're told. But her uncle is a huge Bollywood director. She wants to be a photographer. She went to school in Berkeley. And instead of moving back to the city where her family is, she moved to a different city to like pursue photography on her own. She is using her own money. She is not like relying on her parents. And she knows Veer. Veer was an actor, and he moved home to support his mom and his younger brother. He works at like I don't know if it's a high-end coffee shop, but like a coffee shop, and that's where Veer and Harsha know each other from. Harsha goes every day. She's a very complicated order. They have this cute little banter where he always says the wrong thing, even though like he gives her the right drink.
Right.
And so there's this cute little banter. At the beginning of the story, Harsha is dating this guy who on paper is everything her parents want. He's in business, he's stable, he's great, except he breaks up with her because his mom arranged a marriage for him. This is such a great little moment. And she hasn't told her family. She runs into her cousin at a bar where Veer also happens to be. They're just like chatting friendly at the bar, and her cousin shows up and is like, oh my God, this must be your boyfriend. And she's like, yep, totally my boyfriend, right? Yeah, absolutely. This is the boyfriend, because she doesn't want to admit that she's single because her cousin just newly got engaged and they have this weird rivalry. So she offers to, and Harsha has access to what she thought is like a trust for her from her parents that she hasn't touched since she moved away. But she's like, so that I can show up to my uncle's anniversary party and my cousin's wedding with this boyfriend looking appropriate, what my family considers appropriate. I'm going to dip into this money and I'm going to pay Veer to be my boyfriend. And at first he's like, I'm offended. And then eventually gets over it because he needs money fast. His brother was accepted to business school on what they thought was a scholarship. And then they were told that the scholarship was like accidentally awarded to his brother. And so it was rescinded, and he needs money fast to pay for school. But she shows up with a contract, like, here's how we're dating. And it includes things like how intimate we're allowed to be in public and all of this stuff, as well as a getting to know you like survey, and that they have to practice going on dates. And once Veer gets over his like, how dare you ask me, pay me, blah, 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 blah. The banter that they had before is there, and their connection grows, and it's really sweet. Aww. And he does things like text me when you get home, and they're just really cute. The pacing of this book, especially toward the end, felt fast. Like, you know how in a movie, like the pacing is fast because you're not in someone's inner monologue, but in a book, you can have a page and a half of inner monologue that in real life would take a second.
Yeah.
And it felt more like a movie. Like we were missing some of that inner monologue. And I kind of wish we got it for those bigger moments, like how we're feeling, what's going through our heads as we make these decisions, as we run away, as we run toward. It just felt really fast. And it is short. I think it's less than 300 pages. So it's a quick read, but I liked it. I thought it was a lovely little, not quite super spicy, not spicy at all, really. One chili pepper, one spice. But I'm not mad about it. Book number 17, Foxglove by Adeline Grace. This is another audiobook. I listened to Belladonna as an audiobook. I'm going to continue with the series. And it's still that same kind of Victorian mystery thing. It's new adult, so they imply sex, but nothing happens on this. Signifaro is in love with Death, which we know from the end of the Belladonna. So if you haven't read Belladonna, sorry. And then another murder happens and her uncle is blamed. And so this book is trying to solve the murder and free her uncle. We get her cousin Blair's point of view into this story, and we get a new kind of supernatural character of Fate, who is Death's brother. And Fate is convinced that Signifaro is the reincarnation of another supernatural being, Life, who he loved when he met her hundreds of years ago. But as with Life, she dies, and she should have. She wanted to. And he is angry at Death for letting Life die in that moment. Right. And so he has this huge grudge against Death, and now thinks Death is in love with Life through Signifaro, and is determined to steal Signa from Death. And so he gets like super shady, like deals with it, like he makes deals and gets super complicated. And at the end, there's a bit of a twist, and I'm not sure how it plays out in the next book, but I believe the third book is exclusively from Blair's perspective, which should tell you something.
Yeah.
Was it bad? No. I am enjoying it as an audiobook because it's very low action. There's no spice. It's an easy listen as an audiobook. And I don't feel like I miss too many things, or I miss things and it doesn't matter that much. Book number 18, Lore of the Wilds by Annalise Sabarna. I was blown away. This was a 5-star read for me. Like 5 stars. Was not expecting it. I thought it was YA. It's not. It's new adult. I thought it was a love triangle, which is part of the reason why I didn't read it. But I'm also not mad that I didn't read it earlier, and I'll get to why. So this is fantasy. It is by an author of color. The entire cast is Black. Lore, who is the main character, FMC, is human in this world full of fae. This small village of humans was not meant to be here. Hundreds of years ago, they appeared from the heavens, and there's, mythology as to why they appeared, but they don't really know. And they have no magic. They are surrounded by fae, and they are held captive in this squalid little village by the fae around them. And through unforeseen circumstances, Lore ends up at the castle of the fae because their library is enchanted so that no fae can enter. And Lore is a human who can read fae language. So she is brought to the castle to go through this library, clean it, sort it, care for it, find books on magic for the fae, and take them out of the library.
Do we find out why the fae are cursed from going in there?
We don't find out why the fae are cursed, but we do find out what they were looking for in the library.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's a lord of this castle, and she mostly deals with the steward, who's an asshole. But while she's there, she is assigned a guard whose name is Asher. And she and Asher, because he eats with her, he walks with her, he stands outside the library while she's working 24/7, excluding when she's sleeping. He takes her to the market when she gets paid and shows her how to buy things. And I love this moment of he's like, I'll tell you which vendor sells the good hair products and the not good hair products for their curls. I love that so much. And she has a moment where she's like, my curls aren't being taken care of. And he has curls and antlers. And so he shows her what foods are good and what vendors are good. It was really sweet. And so we watch kind of this relationship grow. And she finds in the library, in a moment that feels magical, but she's not 100% sure it's magical because it happens so quickly, a blank book. And she takes it from the library and uses it as a journal, writes in it. And I'm not going to lie, it gives me such creepy Tom Riddle vibes.
I was just thinking that. I'm like,
I know. I was waiting for the moment she starts writing in it. I was just waiting for the ink to be absorbed and then regurgitated.
Start talking.
It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. Okay, good. So she thinks it's it's a journal. She's writing in the journal. And then one night she's opened her window and moonlight hits the journal, and the journal absorbs all of her ink and speaks to her. And it turns out the journal is actually magical. And it says, and part of the reason why she's also doing this is the lord of the castle says that if she works in the library, he'll give her village aid in food and supplies. And the journal says, I'll show you a vision of your home. And it turns out her home was not given supplies and they are worse off. And in fact, people have been kidnapped from her place, from her town. And the journal says, if you take me out of this castle, I will give you magic. And so she takes the journal, runs, is caught. Asher catches her and is like, what's going on? And then guards show up. Asher kills the guards and they both run. And on the run, she reveals what this is to Asher, and he can't see it. The book doesn't speak to him. The book doesn't speak in daylight. And they end up hiding out at this inn that Asher knows the owner, and the owner's 2 kids, a boy and a girl. It's just so good. There's also a twist at the end where I was like, are you fucking kidding me? Now, the reason why I'm not mad I didn't read it earlier is this book came out in February of 2024. Okay. February of 2024. Second book comes out in July of 2025. So like it's already it feels like a long time for me. I cannot even imagine if I read this in February, if I had to wait a year and a half, I would scream. So if I kind of want to be like, I wonder if I can get an arc of this because it was so good. Also, it was only in hardcover before, but the paperback comes out in a couple weeks, so I'm probably gonna buy the paperback.
Yeah, I was like, you've got that on lock, right?
No,
right
5-star read for me. I loved it. Loved it. Okay, but I had to like get more spice in my life, and so I read Puck Shy by Kayla Gross, which is kind of the sequel to Trick Shot. Trick Shot is an MMF novella, and Puck Shy is not. Technically, it's MF, but hold on. And it is the sister of the FMC from Trick Shot and the brother of one of the MMCs from Trick Shot. And they get together at a Schmex club. They meet at a Schmex club.
Why are we censoring
club. It's fine. I don't know, because I think that's a funny way to say it. I can say sex club. It's fine. And shit, what's her name? Stevie. Stevie is the FMC, but he calls her Cherry, which I love. They meet at the sex club where Stevie performs with one of her best friends, a woman. So it starts with this FF scene. She and Lucas had like run into each other in the hallway and had a bit of a flirt, but then she goes to do the scene. And then in the scene, they bring in another woman. So it's FFF. And then they bring in Lucas. So it's FFM. And then there's some fooling around with other stuff where there's like MFM, and then there's like an MFFM scene too. So like even though it's an MF love situation, it's not. It's so spicy. Just Kayla Gross and all the spice. But so they have this connection. They're very like the chemistry is great. And she's like, no, we can't date. And he's like, how about you work for me? You hate your job and I need a social media manager, which is what she does. And so then they work together and he holds the boundaries until eventually they don't, which is great. It was just great. It was longer than I expected. It was like 200 and something pages. But I'm not mad about it. Not mad about it at all. At all. Oh, also, Stevie is plus sized, and one of my favorite things about the cover is like, and Kayla Gross even says this in her author's note, is like the artist like put in the back rolls, like Stevie has back rolls, and they're beautiful.
I love it.
Yeah. So
again,
I needed
as a plus size woman, that's not represented very often, and I love it. I love that it's getting a lot more representation lately.
Yes,
love that so much.
Yeah, it's great. I went back to Theodora Taylor. So after I read Her Berry Sexy Christmas, I wanted to read the book that Therese actually recommended in the podcast, which is Alexi. And I DM'd Therese. I'm like, I'm reading Alexi. And she's like, you have to tell me what you think about it. And if you recall, it is a surprise, not surprise pregnancy. It is a secret baby trope. It's Mafia Secret Baby, which is like her favorite. And I did have to explain to someone recently, like, what's the difference between surprise pregnancy and secret baby? Because there is a difference.
There is a difference.
There is a difference.
Yes.
I don't particularly love either, but I liked this one.
I know. I was like, Mafia and Secret Baby. I'm like, are you okay?
I know. Well, I mean, I could read it and hated it, but I didn't. So Alexi is the MMC, and I have no recollection of what the FMC's name is. Don't remember. But the story starts with them. They're in grad school. Alexi's been cut off from his family because he wants to stay in America studying. And Eva is cut off from her family because she's dating Alexi. She's also Black. Alexi is Russian mob. The first chapter ends with Alexi coming home from class and the FMC being gone. Like she left a note that was like, I need my money and my lifestyle and you can't give that to me. Bye. And then 8 years pass, and Alexi's at a wedding. Eva is also at the wedding because she was roommates with the bride. Alexi knows the groom through business. And literally he like sees her and then like strides over and they make out viciously. And she's like, shit, I have to go. And we see her, like, we get a little bit of her perspective. She's texting this guy named Aaron. Like she's checking in with him, blah, blah, blah. So we're like, oh shit. She's like, taken, and he's like, no. And so as soon as they stop making out and Alexi's actual date is like, hi, are we about to have a threesome? So funny. She bolts and she leaves. And Alexi's like, my revenge will be complete, because he has basically become a bajillionaire in the meantime. He turned his mafia business, his family's mafia business, into legitimate business, and just like crushed it in the business world. And so he then buys her family's oil company. Which, number one, why the fuck would you sell this? Like, Dad, why would you sell it to him in the first place? I don't understand. You caused all of this. So he buys the company, and the company had basically made its headquarters into this little town. And the little town, everybody works for the company. And so if the headquarters for the company is moved, the whole town dies, basically. And so Eva's dad is like, you better go to him and make sure he keeps the headquarters in this little town. So she goes to meet with him, and he's like, I want 2 weeks where I can do whatever I want with you and then throw you to the curb like you threw me to the curb. And then you can have.
Damn.
But it turns out the reason why she left is his uncle showed up and threatened her. And that's why she bolted. And after she bolted, she found out she was pregnant. So she has a son with him who's 7.
Aaron.
Mm-hmm. And then like we get to see what happens on those 2 weeks of, nonstop fucking.
It's what we were here for.
Next
anyways.
book. And it's short. It was really short. It was not long. Blissfully Snowbound, though, by Cassie Verano, is officially a novella. It is a Christmas novella. I did not realize until I was most of the way through it that it is book 3. And you don't really have to read book 1 or 2. If you get like, oh, there's probably a story about that couple. Yep, there is. That was book 1. Missed it. It's okay.
Damn it.
So it's fine. It's Champion and Merrick, FMC, MMC, and they are the best friends and the maid of honor best man to a couple who's getting married. And they've never met before, but right before they are meeting, like in a week or 2 before, Merrick's girlfriend, he finds out, has cheated on him with his cousin, and they've broken up. So he's in like a bad space about women. And Champion has a bad history, specifically with Black men. They're both Black. Cassie Verano is Black. I actually got this book from a list Therese M. Clark posted about like author of colors holiday stories. So maybe I'll put that in the show notes too, because it was a great resource. And she has her own history with Black men, specifically feeling like they're not attracted to her, they don't like her, and like she won't date them because she has a bad history. And they meet, and he's like, oh no, beautiful woman I'm attracted to. I hate all beautiful women. So he's a dick to her. Absolute dick. And then that's the night before Thanksgiving, because why this had to happen on a holiday, I don't know. At Thanksgiving, he kind of apologizes. He's like, I know I was a dick. I didn't mean to. I shouldn't have done that. And then they have this furious makeout session. They don't talk until the rehearsal dinner, where there's like all of this sexual tension, and he ends up like tying her to a chair and like fucking her in a side room at the event space. It's great. It's really great. And misses most of the rehearsal dinner. And then after the wedding, they hook up. And she's like, I got to get home. This wedding was Christmas Eve. I want to spend Christmas Day with my family, who like does not appreciate her, sidebar. Like they don't appreciate her at all. But her car breaks down not too far from where he lives during a snowstorm. And so they end up snowbound in his house together. It's great.
No.
Oh, I don't even remember if there's like any drama after they get together. Oh, I do have this one note where he uses nipple clamps, and I'm like I have a note that's like, I need to state that we have not seen him take off these nipple clamps. Like we are past the sex scene, and I don't know if these have been removed.
They're like possibly still on. They're just
I have no idea, but there's a little bit of kink. There's a lot of anal play. So I'm not mad about this, but I don't recall any other drama besides like, oh no, we're snowed in together and then we're just gonna fuck a lot. So low stakes. I want to go back and read the first 2, because the couple from the first book is the one getting married in this book. Okay. Then I went back to more Christmas novellas. There's going to be a lot of like weird Christmas novellas too. Only Santa's in the Building, and this is one of the like Amazon originals. This is by Alexis Daria. I have Alexis Daria books that I haven't read, so I was excited to get this little like taste of her. These are very short. They're less than 100 pages. I've read only 2 of them, but I like these. The ones that they made for Valentine's Day were meet cute, so I don't think any of them had spice. The 2 that I've read so far do have a little bit of spice in it. Not a lot of spice. Again, they're less than 100 pages. But Only Santa's in the Building. We've got Evie and what's his face? Theo. Evie and Theo. They are upstairs, downstairs neighbors. Evie lives below Theo in an apartment. She is a comic book artist on deadline, and so she's just like a hot mess around Christmas. Theo does freelance tech work. He lives above her, and he's like got his shit together. Evie also has just lost her grandmother, who she'd been living with and taking care of, and her uncle sold her grandma's house like out from under her, and so that's why she's living in this apartment. She's only been there a few months. She has no Christmas decorations. She has nothing up because she's been on deadline, and all of her stuff is in storage because she had to move out so quickly. It was not a great situation. She is on deadline, and she finds these little ornaments. I know. She's been finding these little ornaments at her like hung on her apartment door, and she like assumes it's, you know, the nice old lady living downstairs. And she goes to the apartment building's Christmas party, and she and Theo have like a bit of a flirt. She's had a crush on him like since the beginning, since they moved here. She's had a crush on him since she moved into the building, but her sister keeps telling her like, don't shit where you eat. Do not hook up with someone in your building. So there's a mistletoe moment, and they go back down to his apartment where he confesses that he's had a crush on her too. And they have like a really lovely little interlude. And like, that's it. Like, it's very simple. And then the epilogue is just them meeting each other's families. So like very short, very sweet, little bit of spice. Like and it was like, is it Shakespeare? No. But am I mad about it? Also, no. It was really like, if you are someone who really needs to get some novellas like onto your, like you just need some more things and to read these. You've got 10 of them. Book number 23, Barbarian Alien by Ruby Dixon. This is book 2 in the...
Wait, what was it called? Sorry.
Barbarian Alien. Yeah. So it's the book 2 in the Ice Planet Barbarian series, of which there are like 20. But they're being re-released by Trad. And it's good. This is a loathe to love situation where, which was very sweet. It's like oddly sweet. Now, because we got the big drama of the space crash and all of that in the first book, we already know that everyone's going to be fine. This is Liz and Rahosh? Who knows? It's an alien.
Who knows? It's an alien.
Who knows? It's a big blue alien. And Rahosh is super, super grump, feels his qui resonate for Liz, but she doesn't seem to like him, and so he absconds with her to like his secret cave to, you know, make her his. I will say, like, he waits until she wants it. He doesn't like violate her or anything. Okay. He's like, I'm gonna prove and care for you and all sorts of stuff. And then, you know, her qui starts to resonate for him, and she's all like super sexually attracted to him. And so most of the book is them by themselves, just kind of getting to know each other and falling for each other, figuring each other out, which is good. I don't know if aliens are my thing. They're not bad.
It's such a sentence. I love aliens are my thing.
They're not. I'm not like ew aliens. But they're not my thing. This was so much fun. So this is Ever After is the next book by F.T. Lukens. I am slow to this game. They've been around for a while. And this is such a cute idea. It is what happens after you defeat the enemy as prophesized. So this story starts with
Like the big bad getting...
Yeah, being beheaded. Arik literally chopping the head off the big bad, as was prophesized to him. And then they're like, great, cool, what do we do next? And his best friend, who he's in love with, named Matt. Also, everyone's queer. There's so much queer. So much, like all sorts of queer, which is, I believe, their focus as an author. But he's like, I'm going to confess my love for Matt once we're done questing, and then we can be like best friends and in love together. So Matt's like, you got to put the crown on, dude. Just like put the crown on your head so that there's a leader. Remember, he has a princess locked in a tower. She's the rightful heir. We'll get her unlocked from the tower and all's good. Don't worry about it. Turns out the princess is dead. So he's now king. And they're like, what the fuck do we do? Also, so he's in love with Matt. He's like, I can't confess because like I've just become king. Yeah. It turns out that if he's not married by his 18th birthday, he's 17. If he's not married by his 18th birthday, the magic of the crown will kill him.
Oh my God.
So he's like, I don't want Matt to like say yes to binding his soul to mine because of, right. He feels bad for me. So I'm going to try and marry someone else.
Oh no.
And it's just a comedy of errors. And he like tries to ask Matt's interest, and Matt's like says something that he interprets as, oh, you're not interested in me. And so it's really cute. But he's like, I'm gonna, I should do all these things that heroes do to woo people, and it all backfires in the plan. And then Matt ends up being the person who does it. So he's like, I should do something that has Bethany swoon in my arms because that's what she says she wants. And then there's this battle with like a squid monster, and Matt swoons in his arms, and it's just really funny. It's really cute and adorable, and like very new adult. There's no spice, even though like there's no spice. It's just really sweet. And I also like the concept of what happens after the big bad. So I thought it was a great story. And I believe F.D. Lukens has other stuff. If it's all this kind of YA new adult, I don't know if I'm going to rush to it, but it's going to be they're going to be one of my recommendations for people looking for that kind of thing.
Definitely.
Another holiday novella, which is My December Darling by Lauren Asher. Lauren Asher writes monstrous books, just monstrously long books now. And so it was nice to get a novella of hers. But this novella takes place in the same world as the Lakefront Billionaires series, but is not those people. I hope it's not those people. If I get confused, well, maybe I should have read this one first, but I didn't. And Lauren Asher is also Cuban American, and so a lot of her characters have Latinx heritage, including the FMC here, Catalina. It's Catalina and Luke. It is a kind of a loathe to love you, where Catalina had briefly dated Luke's best friend, and then Luke's best friend and Catalina's sister got together, and Catalina has just been burned. She's the grump in this story. And so when she met Luke, she's like, he's perfect. He's like too nice, blah, 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 blah. I don't like him. Or he just makes me uncomfortable. And they're getting married. Oh, there's no hard feelings about her sister and her, like, the ex getting married. They didn't even have sex together. So, like, he's not like, oh, no, you're sleeping with the same guy I'm sleeping with. They just kind of dated. She's a traveling nurse. He's an ER doc. She comes back to the town where all of this happens because her sister's getting married. She's going to stay for a month and also work in the hospital as a traveling nurse in the NICU. She works in NICU. And So they meet in the hospital. They're doing stuff for the wedding. They're both obsessed with Legos. And Luke is like, I like her. I'm going to date her. And kind of schemes he like buys a Lego set she really wants to make. And he gets a coffee machine for the break room on the first floor and is like, you could use it. He buys her the coffee that she likes. And it's kind of really cute. And so pivoting in a completely different direction. I read Hitched because I was also trying to get things off of my KU account that had been there for a while, and I picked the shortest ones, Barbarian Alien, My December Darling, and Hitched. Hitched by Lauren Beale, I put on my e-reader because someone sent me a video and it was like, here's the darkest book I've ever read. And it wasn't Hitched. It was the third book in this series, but I thought I should start with the first book. Hitched is a dark hitchhiker romance. Because with the word hitched, you have no idea. Is it like hitched, like married? No, hitchhiker. And friends. Seffi and friends.
Oh, no.
This is dark.
Oh, no.
This is so dark. So Selena is the FMC and she's driving in the rain. I don't even know if she's driving to or from her abusive husband, but she ends up picking up a hitchhiker from the side of the road named Lex. And Lex, it turns out, has just escaped from prison where he's serving multiple life sentences for murder.
Oh, God.
And says, great, now that I'm in your car, you're taking me to the border. They're in New York, by the way. Like, they're in New York, and he's like, you're taking me to the border. And they go on this little adventure, and he's like, I'm totally going to fuck you. And she's like, you can't. And, eventually they do. But it's like, I'm not even going to say heartwarming. There are some moments that are really dark. Like, Selena has a moment where she just asks him to kill her. Because she is so, like, she can't imagine her. She's like, if I go back to my husband, he will kill me. And I don't know if we can go forward together. It's like real heartbreaking. Next is Path to Loving Him by Megan Quinn, which is another arc. My last two books are arcs. Megan Quinn's book comes out. It's probably already out if you're listening to this when I think we're publishing this. It is book 3 of the Almond Bay series. I'm not going to lie. I did not realize that because when I was looking up this book, I don't even know how I got this arc, to be fair. It doesn't say it's book 3, but it is actually book 3. They're standalones. I did not need to read the others in order to get to this, but having read this, I want to read the others. Megan Quinn, as we discussed before, writes monstrous books. So this book is also like 500 fucking pages. So long. And it is, one night stand, forced proximity, workplace romance of a single guardian.
That's a lot.
It's 500 pages.
Holy shit.
You have to have a lot. Like,
yeah.
What do you mean? It's what you need all of the tropes because it's 500 pages. It's Gabby and Ryland. So Ryland is a high school baseball coach, like really well known, really great program, gets scouts all the time. Gabby's brother actually was a student of Ryland's years ago. Her brother Bennett is now in the minors, and Gabby has been coaching him and working on that. She's got her teaching license and she wants to be a baseball coach because that's like what she does and she loves it. So she interviews for Ryland's new assistant. And she's so mad because Ryland doesn't show up to the interview. And she feels like she bombed it. She tripped. She like minced her words. It was not a good experience. So she's drowning her sorrows at a bar in town because she doesn't live there anymore. And in walks Ryland and his best friend. Now, Ryland has been bitching to his best friend because this new person on the school board has hired an assistant without him. He wasn't invited to the interviews. So we know like why he wasn't there because he wasn't invited to these interviews. He has no idea who the candidates are. He has no idea any of that. And so he's like really upset and really stressed. And his best friend's like, you got to hook up with someone. So they go to the bar and they're both at the bar. And Gabby's like,
I can already see where this is going.
And he has no idea who she is. No idea.
Not.
She's like, you have no idea who I am. Like, you coached my brother. I'm supposed to be interviewing for your assistant. I'm mad as fuck at you. You didn't even show up to my interview. I'm going to pretend I'm someone else. Like, she's like, I travel blog. And they have this insane night together. Because she's like, whatever, I'm leaving. Like, I didn't get the job, whatever. Of course she gets the job.
Of course she gets the job.
Of course she gets the job. And the school board dude sets her up in this really nice apartment that's like over the garage of someone's house. Turns out Rylan has just bought that house. So she's now his tenant. And
wow.
his assistant. And they have this insane chemistry. And both of them are like, it was the best sex of my life. Rylan is also going through it because several months before, his older sister died of cancer. Her husband was already dead from a car crash. And he is now the guardian of his 4-year-old niece.
Oh my God.
I know. He also has a history of, like, he had an alcoholic, abusive father. His mother was not in the, I don't remember if she died or was just not in the picture. And he took the physical abuse from his dad so he could protect his sister. So he's got like a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
A lot of trauma. And it's basically them not resisting each other at all. It's a constant, like, this is the last time. No, this is the last time. No, this is the last time. And then the last book is another arc, Love and Other Hollywood Endings by Susanna Irwin. This is not her first book, but she is a newer author. It is a second chance forced proximity workplace situation, but it's not long. I think this also is less than 300 pages. We've got Xavier and Sutton. They're not terribly age gappy. I think there's like maybe 4 or 5 years between them. But when she was finishing undergrad film school, he was a visiting lecturer. And so she met in his lecture after she graduated. They had a searing kiss. And then both of them think the other ghosted them for reasons which will be revealed. So there's a lot of hurt feelings because they'd spent this semester kind of like flirting and bantered and all of this stuff. They had a moment and then nothing.
Yeah.
Sutton is now a movie exec in a production company, and Xavier is continued to be a director. He's done mostly indie. This is his first big budget action film. And it turns out his producer has been skimming money off the top, gets caught, and runs away with the money. All the production company knows is they are wildly over budget. And so Sutton is actually sent, and the production company liaison was also skimming money off the top. So he's fired. Sutton is the new liaison and is sent to this location shoot to shut the film down. Now, when she discovers, as they discover, that there's fraud involved, she's able to show the books that they're not actually over budget, that the not overdrafts, but like the excess is from the fraud, and convinces the production company to keep the film alive. But she becomes the new on-site producer. So now she's on site with him and the team, figuring it out, like really making sure that like all the money is where it is, because she wants a promotion and he wants this movie to do well. And they're also dealing with the hurt feelings of the past and the sexual tension of the now. The entire, crew is making bets on whether or not they are sleeping together, have slept together, will sleep together. And, they do.
Of course.
It also felt very fast. Now, I know that Susanna Irwin, from her author's note, has a film background. That's what she used to do before books. And so I will say this is probably exactly how it would play out on screen. What I would love to see more of next time is more time. We don't need to get it done quickly. We can spend extra time in the feeling, in the wallows, in the inner monologue of these characters, especially at the end when they're dealing with such big, complex things. Do I want this job? Am I going to shift my career? Am I going to move? Do I want to commit to you? We're not getting those moments inside their head. We're getting only the action, which is great for film, but not what I want in a novel.
Right.
Was it a bad thing to end the year on? No, it was cute. It was enjoyable. It also was like weirdly fade to blackish. We got their first hookup, and then it's like over the next 2 weeks, we had a lot of trysts. And I'm like, why didn't we get any of those?
Yeah.
Like, and that's it. And that's it. Like
and
we did that.
2 hours and 15 minutes later.
I know.
I'm going to say that's really good, though.
Like, I'm going to say it's really good. We did a great job. But that's it. I feel like I ended 2024 really well. If you haven't listened to the wrap up of 2024, my top 10 and my goals for 2025, go listen to that episode. But I'm going to do things a little bit differently in 2025 moving forward. Look for some extras here on the podcast or elsewhere. Hint, hint, wink, wink. And I hope that you stick around for what I'm going to read next. Thanks, y'all. Bye.
Bye.
That's it for today, y'all. This has been a 3 Paws Productions podcast. Our producer is Seffi. Michael Achenbach is our patient editor. Our theme song is written and performed by Diana Weishauer. You can find show notes and so much more at jacereadsromance.com. That's JAYCE Reads Romance. Follow along on TikTok and Instagram at Jace Reads Romance. If you'd like to ask a question or share a story for the podcast, call and leave a message at 661-JACE-RR. That's 661-529-2377. Or send an email to jace@jacereadsromance.com. Finally, like and subscribe so you can get every episode when they drop. You can also leave us a review to help others find us. And remember, this is Jace holding space for you.